Hey guys, this is Adam with Carnage Comics and Cards doing another video. This one is going to be on my Spider-Man collection and looking at some Spider-Man keys. So the first thing we have up here is Ultimate Spider-Man. So this is a new series by Jonathan Hickman, and Chichetto is the artist. And basically here you go, we got issue number 6, we got issue number 5, we got issue number 4. Got issue number 3 of this with Green Goblin, Bullseye, and then Spider-Man up there. And here's my one variant I got. This is an homage cover to the Spider-Man Walking Away story. I love it because it's just, you know, Peter Parker as a dad doing his thing. Love that whole balance in this story. Number 2, grown-up Peter Parker and Goblin, and then the first run, Ultimate Spider-Man number 1. This is like I think going for $90 to $100 right now. Great cover. People just didn't expect this comic to be that good. So what is this comic series? So this series so far, this is a new series, and it's all about it. What if Peter Parker and Mary Jane got married and Peter never got his powers? And so what happens is that, I think is it the Mastermind? Basically it's a version of the guy from Fantastic Four, the stretchy guy. Why can't I think of his name? Anyways, he in an alternate reality, he's a bad guy, and he prevents all these superheroes from getting their powers. And so Iron Man figures this out from the, you know, a different timeline, or I forget the details. Anyways, Spider-Man ends up getting his powers back, but he's obviously much older, and that's kind of what's going on. Alright, so next up I have this Wells cover here. This is issue number 43. I just love this cover, the whole thwip thing. And same thing here. This was the Mary Jane Ski Chalet cover. And I have several others in this run. Not a fan of this run, but I still collected the covers for a while. And this is obviously issue number 1. So that is the current run. I won't talk about this run. This run is terrible. Can't wait for it to change in November. Alright, next up I got a variant of Ultimate Spider-Man number 1. This is the Scott Campbell, which this is the homage to Spider-Man 601. And it's signed here by him. This was a deal I got on his website. So love this cover. You can see it in a lot of my other videos sitting in the background. This is Spider-Man 544, and we'll talk about what this storyline is when we look at keys. Alright, next I've got Spider-Man and Deadpool. So this isn't exactly a Spider-Man, but you guys know I'm a Deadpool fan, I'm a Spider-Man fan, and this is a cool cover. Alright, let me get these out of the way. Okay, now I've got a Mark Bagley cover. This is Venom on the front. I just love this cover. There's another cover that I'm going to show later that goes along with this, but it's kind of like a Shakespearean thing. It's really cool. Alright, and then now we get into my Todd McFarlane run. This is the last one. I love this punch. I love that it's got the gray Hulk, like everything about this. The Spider-Man logo is being broken up, and this too. Like, that's just a great, great cover. Next, I'm also a Captain America fan, so I like it. There's a Todd McFarlane with both of them on there, so just a great cover. Okay. There you go, the Lizard. Just great. More McFarlane art. Now, I love this one. So this is, I do love Superman too. I don't have a lot of Superman comics. I'm not really reading the current run right now. I'd like to get into, I got into it for a little bit, and then I just had to cut it because I just didn't have the space on my pull list. But this is an homage to Action Comics number 1, the first appearance of Superman. So another Todd McFarlane. All right, so this one's a bit different. This is the first appearance of Spider-Man 2099. 2099 is just this futuristic Spider-Man. I love in the new Spider-Man movies the portrayal of this Spider-Man. But I also watched the cartoon back in the 90s, and it was a great cartoon. And it's got like a foiling to it, if you guys can see. Alright, so this is the oldest Spider-Man comic I currently have, and it's issue number 162. It's got Nightcrawler, I love X-Men, and Spider-Man, and then the Punisher. And so it's just a great, iconic cover. And then as well, it's the first appearance of Jigsaw. So Jigsaw is an enemy of the Punisher. And if you are reading the current Punisher run, it's not the same Punisher, it's a different Punisher. But Jigsaw is in that. So just, yep, love it. And this one I paid a little bit more money for than all the others. So you'll see this in the background in a lot of videos too. And that's my Spider-Man collection that I have right now. Not impressive or very vast, but you gotta start somewhere, right? So, all right, let's get into the keys here. We'll jump over to the computer.
All right, guys, let's take a look at some Spider-Man keys. All right, so Spider-Man has a million keys, right? It literally is the most collectible comic book in the entire, comic world, right? So they also have some of the highest prices. So the Grail, of course, being Amazing Spider-Man #1. It is a high of $82,000, $4,500 for a low. I mean, that's like missing a cover low. Like I think you're lucky to get this, at that midpoint. Obviously, cover by Steve Ditko, writer was Stan Lee, cover artist Jack Kirby, and second appearance of Spider-Man. So I've actually read this comic, and it's Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. And it's okay. I mean, if you've read old '60s comics, then you know what to expect. It feels like homework at times. All right, the next key, and these are just gonna be keys that I'm interested in. There's so many keys, guys. Like they're literally. I mean, the first 100 issues are like all keys. They're all first appearances, second appearances of the iconic Spider-Man villains. So this one is really good because Spider-Man is down on his luck, and it's an inspirational story where he, is like, no, I'm not going to give up, and he lifts this massive weight off of himself. Um, yeah, it's the debut of his incredible strength. All right, next I've got Amazing Spider-Man #50. Spider-Man No More. So it's the first appearance of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, and it's the story of Peter Parker walking away from Spider-Man. And there's been several homage covers and different covers dealing with Spider-Man walking away. So it's a great cover, and it's got that price point where someday I might actually be able to afford it. This was John Romita Sr., so a lot of iconic covers in the Spider-Man series from early on are John Romita Sr., and this was another Stan Lee written book. Next up, we have Spider-Man #59, and this is the first appearance of Mary Jane, who becomes a love interest, obviously, of Spider-Man. It's a great cover. John Romita Sr. again, and it's also the first kiss between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker, and it's Kingpin's alter ego Brainwasher's first appearance of him. I've not actually read this one. I've gotten I think like 20 issues in from the start, but yeah, it's a great series. But these early comics that really you can only really sit down and read one or two of them at a time. All right, next up, obviously just an iconic cover here, Spider-Man 100, art by John Romita Sr., written by Stan Lee. Next up, we got Spider-Man #121, just another iconic cover. and this is the issue where Gwen Stacy dies. So, not to be a spoiler, but I mean, this comic is, 40 years old. So if you didn't know that, I apologize, but if I didn't spoil it for you, someone else will. So basically, it's the Green Goblin, and he kidnaps Gwen Stacy and drops her, and Spider-Man leaps over and tries to save her, and he catches her with his web, but she's moving so fast and he stops her so quick it breaks her neck. And so it's honestly a very emotional issue, and iconic for that reason. Is very unexpected. No, I don't know that anybody really expected Gwen Stacy to die in this. So it's this turning point. Yeah. Next up is Spider-Man 129. So I'm a big Punisher fan. I love this cover. There's just something iconic about this cover, and it's just, I don't know, it does it for me. And that's just kind of how comic books are, is that some comic books are just going to speak to you. And this comic book can be ranges widely in price. I've never seen it for 2,500. I'm guessing that's like a 9.8 CGC. I've seen it raw for anywhere from like, 300 to 500 bucks at cons and stuff like that. But yeah, this is the first appearance of the Punisher. This is where Punisher got his start. John Romita Sr. Writer was Jerry Conway. All right, next up, I got Amazing Spider-Man number 194. It's the first appearance of the Black Cat. And again, just another great cover. I think that's really why Spider-Man is so collectible. Is there's just so many great covers. Like the art in Spider-Man is some of the best in the industry. And I mean, let's be honest. Black Cat was the answer to Catwoman. I don't know which one came first, to be honest. There's probably some debate there, but they're very different characters. Like when I think of the Black Cat and Catwoman, like they don't feel the same at all. But I mean, they both are thieves, and both are heroes and villains. Like they kind of go back and forth. Just interesting. Art by Al Milgrom, great cover artist, and then writer Marv Wolfman, 1979. Okay, next up is just number. Sorry, what number was this? 201. And it's just, I think it's the third appearance of cover art. No, it's just a cover art just featuring the Punisher. And I just love this cover. I've seen this before. It's not a high dollar book, but this is just one I'd like to have. Not a key really in a lot of facts. In a lot of ways, just great cover. All right, next up is the first appearance of Madam Web, number 210. So with the new movie Madam Web that came out from Sony, this book went sky high. And so like I've stayed away from it. I don't movie hype will increase the value of some books like that. Honestly, a lot of times it just doesn't make sense. But I'm sure this is coming down. It looks like mids 20, highs 80 right now. Another John Romita. Actually, this is a junior. This is John Romita Jr. Cover, but writer Dennis O'Neil. Great cover. The Madam Web thing is really interesting in that she's blind and she's an old lady, but if you watch the movie, obviously that's not the case. All right, next up we have Spider-Man number 238, first appearance of the Hobgoblin. So I don't know if you don't follow Spider-Man, you probably don't know, but there was a Green Goblin and then there's Hobgoblin. And in the TV show in the 90s, which is where I fell in love with Spider-Man, Green Goblin is Harry Osborn, and then sorry, not Harry Osborn, is Norman Osborn. So the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn in the '90s cartoon, and then you know he's defeated, and his son Harry picks up the costume, but he's the Hobgoblin. In this, it's Roderick Kingsley in the comic books. But that's just how I always think of the Hobgoblin, is that he's Harry Osborn, and that was a really interesting dynamic in the '90s cartoon. And if you're reading the new Ultimate series, Harry is the Green Goblin, which I'm sure is partly where the that came from, was the '90s cartoon. But just a great cover. Love the tearing of the costume apart with the Hobgoblin. The Hobgoblin to me is actually a little bit better than the Green Goblin. I know, people are gonna hate me for that. Maybe not in the comics, but I always loved it in the cartoon. So another junior comic cover, and Roger Stern is the writer. All right, now we're moving into some newer stuff. We got Spider-Man number 252. This is the first appearance of the black suit. Actually, is very reasonable to get your hands on one. You can get it as between 50 and 60 bucks, and then on the high end it's 185. Artist is Ron Frenz. Roger Stern is the writer, and the black costume comes from, yes, here we go. It's a fan from Illinois named Randy Schultz, and the guy liked it just so much. He wanted to put it in a comic book, and so that's what happened. But Todd McFarlane later on, popularizes the Venom symbiote, and he does the black costume. And so this is the iconic, 300, landmark issue. Obviously, as you can see, this is a popular comic right now. The copies sold this week are up 107%. It's the first appearance of Venom. I don't think I'll ever be able to spend that much on a comic book, but maybe you can find one in the low to mid end. It's not too bad. All right, Amazing Spider-Man number 315. This is the second appearance of Venom, right? So this is a great cover. And if you can't get the first appearance, why not go for the second appearance, right? So only 25 bucks, and it's a Todd McFarlane cover. I love everything Todd McFarlane. I think he's a great artist. I love his art style. All right, and then we have the fourth appearance of Venom, which I don't really care about. I just love this cover. This cover is great. Another Todd McFarlane cover. I'm working on collecting all the Todd McFarlane covers, obviously, as you saw in my collection. All right, and then we have, okay, so I love these Eric Larson covers. I have the other one that you saw, but I want to get this one too because it matches the other one, and this is just sick cover. Sick cover, just 20 bucks, not a bad deal. Writer here, David Michelini. I forgot how to say that, but yeah, he had a run. Spider-Man was pretty decent. All right, next here, this one. See, this is a little. I mean, it's the first full appearance of Carnage, but this is not a rare comic, from what I understand. So you want to try and get this as cheap as possible, and maybe wait for a dip. At some point, this will dip, and then that's the time to grab it. So yeah, first appearance of Carnage. I love Carnage, obviously being Carnage comics and cards. I just love the word, but I do love the villain too. The in the 90s cartoon, that's where I fell in love with Carnage. I liked that he was kind of crazy and more psychotic than Venom, and more violent, and like when he would fight, he'd turn like his symbiote into an axe and things like that. Like he's just really cool. That's where my love for Spider-Man comes from, guys. That's why I reference it so much. But moving on here, this is just an iconic cover. It's got both Venom and Carnage on the same cover, and this is the second appearance of him. Another Mark Bagley cover. Okay, so this one, you saw my Amazing Spider-Man 544. This is 545. It's not an expensive book. This is just my own theory as to what might happen at the end of the Marvel universe, and maybe it never happens, but I think this is still just a good one to have. So at some point in the Spider-Man story, the Peter Parker and MJ get married, and basically what happens is Mephisto says that like things get so bad that, and see, I'm not good because I don't know the full story of this one, but he ends up, like, Peter's stuck with a choice where he has to either erase his marriage with Mary Jane or save the world, I think, something of that thing. So he says save the world, so then Mary Jane and Peter's marriage is erased from all time. So they remove it from the timeline is what they do. And yeah, I mean, it was a very controversial, and I think it remains still controversial at this point. I think a lot of people love seeing Peter Parker and Mary Jane together. Marvel has said they won't do that, but in the Ultimate Universe, if you're reading that, you know that they're married and have kids. And I gotta tell you, man, I am loving Ultimate Spider-Man. Best Spider-Man I've ever read. And I mean, I've not read a ton of it, but I've read some early stuff, and I've read obviously the Wells run, and also I've read the Nick Spencer run. I like the Nick Spencer run. I don't think that's a unpopular opinion, but the Nick Spencer stuff is great too. All right, then we have Amazing Spider-Man number 601. So this was a very controversial cover. Obviously, this is J. Scott Campbell. He's my favorite cover artist, and features Mary Jane. And it was something about somebody came in and messed with his drawing or whatever. And so then J. Scott Campbell came in and fixed, you know, the less provocative Mary Jane. And basically someone came in and fixed it, made it less provocative. It was like, well, why does this have to be provocative? And like it was a big, social media scandal for the time for a comic book artist, and so that like has driven the price to insane levels. I'd love to get my hands on this. I just love the cover. I love J. Scott Campbell's work, and I'd love to have this one. Here's some more J. Scott Campbell in number 606. Again, just the black cat with Spider-Man. And then, again, number 607, another black cat cover. Just love those covers. And so those are the Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man keys that I'm interested in, that are, of note for me. There's lots more. You can go to Key Collector Comics and look at all the prices for all of them. You can see just look up the Amazing Spider-Man. You can see it, all the keys for the first 100 issues. There's so many. If you guys like this content, let me know in the comments. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this, and I'll catch you on the next one.